Then one day, after one particularly unspeakable abuse, she broke. She grabbed a shard of glass and was ready to bleed herself to death. That's when the creature showed up in front of her, seeming to paralyze time. No one else moved or spoke but the newcomer and her. The thing looked both like an elephant and like a fat pig, and its body was bulbous and scaly at the same time. It had long horns, twirled many times, and a giant tail made of fire. "I come on the behalf of Orcus, the Prince of Undeath, and we have an offer for you," he announced. "I'd do anything. I just want my freedom back," she replied, and the thing gave her a joyless smile with its mammoth-like mouth and fangs. "You get your revenge. Kill whoever you want, bathe in their blood, and no one will ever know what happened. You'll be allowed to carry eternal vengeance, reanimating your brothers' and grandfathers' bodies as many times as you see fit to torture and kill them again." The thing mechanically read it from a long scroll. "Then you'll disappear without a trace. No one will remember that you even existed for all purposes. You'll spend eternity neither dead nor alive, as a property of Orcus. You'll become a demon chained to this place, having to survive on raw chicken and whatever humans or other things, dead or alive, you might desire to consume." Pandora signed the scroll without a second thought. By then, she knew that it was the only option she had. She didn't hope to return to the stage, because 2 years is a long time in the showbiz, because she was tainted, because there was nothing for her except for washing the sorrow from her heart with the blood of everyone who did her wrong. She'd only learned decades later that Orcus rejoices on offering horrible deals to desperate people like her, so they can give him their soul and improve their still miserable existence through violence. She then carried out a carnage that not even Stephen King could put into words. She hunted, tortured, and killed every last abuser, every last person who could have helped her but didn't, and people she's never seen before. Still, I don't blame her, and I'll never blame her. Fictional women who are abuse survivors are pictured as badasses that grew and became strong because of their suffering, but Pandora is real. She's not Sansa Stark. She has every right to feel nothing but hatred after her spirit was broken for pointless reasons. She has every right to become the only thing that she could, a pulsating mass of fury and heartache. A monster. A demon. A being almost as evil as the men who did this to her. The day was almost breaking outside when I woke up, startled, and with my sheets and pillowcase dripping wet with tears. I heard her laughter coming from outside my window, and then I heard a horrifying scream that I now knew very well. The exact same scream that her grandfather let out as she murdered him in my dream. I don't know why, but one of these days, I asked Pandora if she wanted to watch a movie with me. She seemed pleasantly surprised. "Don't go thinking of me as a human woman, okay? But I guess that would be cool." We watched it together in the living room, Pandora saying ah, hs and oohs for everything. Just then I realized that no one ever treated her like someone that might have interests or want to see the world. Now that I knew that she did, I both wanted and had the duty to give her some exciting things to do. After I dreamed of her tragic story, I saw some flashes of her with previous owners of the farm. Lou was the only one who lived peacefully with her, but he never approached her the way I did. Maybe I am the fool, but I don't like the idea of just tolerating each other. After that day, Pandora started to spend her days binging every single movie, sitcom, and anime that I could find for her, and she thought that everything was great, no matter how cliché or low effort the story was. Since she didn't need to sleep, eat anything but the 2 daily raw chicken meals, or do chores other than to protect the house from invaders, Pandora went through the streaming services catalogs in a heartbeat, and I soon saw myself going back to old-fashioned, illegal torrent. Her daily routine consisted mostly of watching a bunch of things, then, after dinner time, having me watch her favorite thing with her so she could make comments about it with me. I thought this was really sweet. Being a binge watcher myself, we often spent hours in that activity, and I think that's when she started to really warm up to me, in her own demonic way. Pandora. "Yeah. I love you and you're my best friend." She laughed. Her face said, "You don't have to be extra nice to me just because you know I have a tragic past." "Okay, nerd. But I'm your only friend. You're lonely and lame." I laughed too, as she was mocking me with such gusto. It meant that she was feeling at ease. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. What would happen if I hypothetically one day got married and had kids? You'd be lamer. I mean about the house. First of all, you only go outside in those ugly jeans, so you getting a man is not a real threat, she smiled. But I think you'd better sell the house. I'm unruly, you know. I can't promise to not harm more than one person at a time. It's not a demon's nature. Would you be fine without me? I asked, truly concerned. She laughed again. Bitch, I've been here since your great-grandmother was a cutie and I'll be here forever. But thanks to you, I'll give the next owner a fourth rule: get me a Netflix subscription, or I'll kill you. We didn't talk about specific details of Pandora's past, as I didn't want to be hurtful or rude. It must have been really hard for her to even share all those memories with me. I didn't ask a second time about what she did when she left the house, but not the property per se, as she couldn't. According to what that strange demon told her, I assumed that the putrid smell meant that she had been reanimating her grandfather and brother to beat the shit out of them again. But I don't really know how, or where she kept the bodies. I can only assume they are buried somewhere around the farm, because her nails are always full of dirt when she comes back. Many of you suggested that I told her about my ex, but at that point I felt the exact opposite. How can I tell a woman that went through all the 7 hells that I lived my life in fear because the man I trusted humiliated and slapped me sometimes? I'm not downplaying this kind of abuse. I knew I had every right to suffer, and I knew that I had to leave him, but when compared to her, it was a smaller problem. He hadn't tried to contact me all this time, and Pandora would attack any intruder anyway, so I thought it was best to leave it at that. In other news, I bought her a pair of expensive, flamboyant shoes and was waiting for an opportunity to gift it to her. I also started renovating the 3rd bedroom using any spare money and time I had available. I wanted to decorate it in a way that looked like a stage and a fancy dressing room, so she'd feel at home there. And to try avoiding getting more people attacked by Pandora, I had a personalized warning sign made in the nearby city. For your own safety, do not trespass. The house itself might hurt you. Ring the doorbell. If it doesn't work, call me. Regarding my poor cousin, I called my mother to ask about her state daily. Luckily, Alyssa's concussion didn't leave any permanent damage. Her eye was swollen to the point of not opening for a few days. Then her vision was blurry for a few more, but other than that she was fine. Even the awful bump in her head was completely gone after 2 weeks or so. I imagine that Pandora didn't hit Alyssa with all her might because she didn't seem particularly menacing, or because the trespasser was a woman. I felt horribly guilty nonetheless, especially because the casserole was delicious. So I spent roughly 1/3 of my monthly income, sending her nice stuff like a fruit gift basket, then a chocolate gift basket, some sunflowers, they were her favorite, wines and cheeses from my local farmer's market, and even a balloon and a plush bear holding a heart that read "Get well soon." Since she was always the one doing kind stuff for others, I hoped that being a little pampered once could make it up for the awful incident at least a little. However, I'll admit that confrontation always made me panic, so I avoided directly talking to her and to my judgmental aunt like the plague. Unfortunately for me, one day Alyssa's mother was at my mom's house and they called me. I was taken by surprise and couldn't avoid talking to her. I hate sisterly bounds and schemes. She lectured me for half an hour about how dangerous it was for a girl to live alone in the woods. It's not in the woods, Shelley. It's a farm, and you know it's pretty close to the town. My mother corrected her in the background, especially in a damn haunted house. And that if I was in such a financial pinch, she'd help me sell this awful thing and find a decent apartment to live. Aunt Shelley made nonsensical suggestions, like having me stay at her place. It's less than 2 hours away. I could really use a bridge partner when Alyssa leaves, and my guinea pig will love the extra company, making all the family pitch in to help me buy a property that's not haunted. Pawning her grandmother's heirloom, and even that I immediately find a husband so I can move in with him. Come on, Shelley, you know she's been through a lot. Or a wife. Wow, Aunt Shelley. Thanks for being a progressive, crazy person. I said I appreciated the concern. Honestly, I didn't, but I was really happy there. She then said that maybe the house put a spell on me to make me think that I'm happy and insisted that I leave it immediately. She'd even help me pay the rent. My aunt isn't a bad person, and I know that this came from a place of worry, but she can be a handful. Talking to her, or rather listening to her long monologue with my mother's director's cut, gave me an awful headache. Both my writing job and the chores of the farm were relatively taken care of, so I indulged myself to a marvelous aspirin-induced late afternoon nap. I woke up to a sound that could only be described as a tank invading my yard. "Holy shit, it's the Colonel's army," goofy voice announced, sounding really concerned. "Sorry for the language, madam. Please stay very still and quiet." "We'll have to go this time, Miss Melinda. It's all hands on deck today," old lady announced gently, then yelled like a general. "Flying head stew, legless Linda, burn face. You're allowed to act today." It's hard to describe the noises that followed. What you could hear the most were the chains and the moans of agony. It was like all the souls of the damned from the whole universe decided to hold a conference in my yard. Then Pandora kept yelling things like, "How many times do I have to tell you that son of a whore Colonel isn't here? Just go to the fucking light, you morons," as she dashed with her strange-looking long sword, clanking it against the chains. And there was legless Linda's laugh, among some other strange noises that I couldn't identify. She sounded like, and I think she was a particularly vicious old witch. It took Pandora over an hour to come fetch me, something that had never happened before. I'm beat. "Let's watch that super silly musical again," she announced by my doorframe. "What happened?" I asked, concerned. It wasn't like me to ask about her business, but it was mostly because she could deal all right with the other invaders. We sat on the couch and I put grease for us. Menaces that are pitiful are the worst. Did you know that this used to be a farm with over 1,000 slaves? I figured this land probably had slaves, but I couldn't imagine how many. Of course, this used to be a way bigger farm, extending to the neighboring properties too, but the slave owner's mansion used to sit right here where we are, including most of your yard and the Henry too. I nodded. When slavery became illegal, that horrible colonel invited all the slaves he had at the time. I was able to count at least 80 for a banquet at the mansion. Supposedly, what actually happened was the racist scum locking them inside and burning the mansion to the ground, because he thought that, if not to serve him, they didn't deserve to live. It took me at least 20 minutes to let that sink in, and I'm not ashamed to say that I broke down crying. My brain couldn't even process such cruelty, especially because since the government didn't offer any aid for recently released slaves who had literally nothing, most pro-slavery farmers, when forced to release their slaves, ended up just hiring them for pennies. And they lived pretty much the same life, but now legally as free people. But this colonel didn't even think that they deserved that infinitesimal change for the best. He was evil and rotten. For a long time, even before me, they have been returning. No one knows when they'll show up. It could take months, years, even decades before the next raid. But they always come back so full of sorrow and angst. They are so blind that they firmly believe that the colonel is still here, and they want to destroy him. "That's understandable," I replied. "Yeah, I know all that because every time their chains touch me or my underlings, we see and feel it all they went through. That's why the battle is always so slow. This, and because I avoid destroying them completely. So they have one teeny chance of just moving on and going to the frigging light." "That's awful," I whimpered. "So the colonel's ghost is not here anymore?" "Nope, went to hell or whatever else a long time ago. Isn't it unfair how he gets to move on with his afterlife while all these people have to suffer as spectrums? They look so awful, all burned down, pieces of their bodies falling as they move. And it's not only the 80 or so that were burned. All the slaves he ever owned want to destroy him, and we have to fight more as the first ones fall and more enter the property." It sounded like a tank entering the yard, I remarked, still fighting back the urge to cry over all this senseless cruelty. "Oh, that's because some of their forms are so mangled and wry that they fused with their chains and with each other, working as a vehicle for the ones that are more or less in one piece above them," she explained. We watched the movie in silence for a while. Pandora seemed more relaxed because she started letting out small laughs and muttering her hair is ridiculous every time the camera closed in on Sandy. On my end, I was still trying to process these incredibly dark pieces of information. Pandora, is it okay if I give you a little something I bought?" Is it an extra chicken? I'm good. I just eat them because of the contract. I shook my head and grabbed the brilliant pink box that I had been keeping hidden for a few weeks. I then got on my knees to help Pandora put her brand new shoes on. Shit, what are you doing? I can't get married. She seemed truly concerned that I was going to propose. I laughed and showed her a pair of very artistic, flamboyant high heels, something that Lady Gaga would wear, but in a more affordable price range. I'm still only a writer with a mortgage to pay, after all. It was weird to choose the ideal size because she didn't have toes, but then I figured that with hoofs it was way easier to wear extravagant heels, since those always hurt your toes the most. She was so happy. She even started criticizing every hairstyle in the movie with more scorn and gusto than ever, and she never took them off. Melinda. Yeah. I suck. She seemed like she wanted to say I'm sorry, but couldn't bring herself to do it. She seemed to be gathering some courage to go ahead. I shouldn't have attacked your relative. It's just that her mentioning the P-man and the H thing. I inferred that she meant priest and holy water. Those really hurt me, you know? And the others too. It's physical torture. And it won't banish us because the house know these very grounds. Well, it's time Lakota tells you about all the complicated shit that's way above my pay grade. Lakota. I screamed as a very tall Native American older female in typical clothes and braids suddenly materialized in the living room, unlike the other ghosts, who had names like Legless Linda or Burnface that suggested a lethal injury. Neither her name nor her body carried anything suggestive of her causa mortis. Lakota was beautiful in a sense. Like an old and intelligent aunt, you look up to everything in her suggested a strength that wasn't unlike a force of the nature. And she looked calm as the eye of a hurricane. She carried herself in the manner of a wise and compassionate leader. Hello, kid. I am what you'd call a shaman, and I've been tied to this place as an eternal observer since before your people first walked these lands. Her mouth didn't move, but I heard her pleasant and energetic voice inside my mind. You see, the leader of my tribe, contradicting the belief of nearly all the other Sioux, didn't think there was an afterlife. To him, the only way to put our souls to rest was tying them to a piece of land that was specifically made for the dead. A cemetery for your spirit, one could say. I nodded. It sounded like something that would go terribly wrong. Over the millennia, that ended up creating some sort of magnetic field that attracts lost souls, especially the ones who died wishing for vengeance, a drain for those that are neither alive nor have crossed whatever there is to cross, and most of all, a raft that beings on journeys in the outer planes end up using as a patch, or as a door to wreak havoc in the world of the living. To sum it up, Pandora intervened. Your place is cursed as fuck. Asking Pandora if he had been in the property was one of the hardest things I've ever done. At first, I started describing him physically, but then the next thing I knew was crying in her arms as I told her how he slapped until I said his name and begged for forgiveness every little time I made a small mistake or anything that he considered to be wrong. I saw you quivering in fear every time you dropped a glass or something, you apologizing frantically for that even if there was no one there. So yeah, no need to tell me anything else if you don't want to. She awkwardly ran her fingers through my hair. So has he been here? Have you killed him? I asked, panicking for a million different reasons. Oh hell no, he's still here. I'm keeping him under the hen house, a cozy spot for some torture, as you could see from my review. I'm breaking him nice and slowly. Shit, Pandora, I could be arrested for that. You know the police won't just believe that a dead person did it. It's fine, Romy. He's the one who tried breaking into your house to kill you. And do worse things too. I was completely freaking out, and nothing she could say would ever make it better. His sister had told me that she called the cops on me, so they could search my farm. You don't mind, right? Her voice dripped the same venom that his did every time he hurt me. If he's not there, you're just being a good, cooperative citizen. I hate this bitch with all my might, but that isn't the point. Will you kill him? Of course I'll kill him. And then probably revive him to suffer more and kill him again, she replied coldly. I might be cool, but you keep forgetting that I love to make humans feel pain, especially when they are such horrible assholes. I urged Pandora to think this through. What if he dies and becomes tied to the house forever? It will be so much worse than having him live. Why the fuck didn't you tell me that he showed up? I really didn't think I'd have to worry you about him being here. I didn't want you to relive all the abuse. You have a beautiful and strong demon to take care of such things to you after all. She was too laid back about it. But now you made it all even worse, I yelled, exasperated. You might be a demon and have your damn rules, but you can't make the rest of the world bow to it. I'm so fucked up. There's no way I can claim self-defense if he didn't even come near me. I don't give a fuck about the little shitty laws you humans created. I give a fuck about protecting you, she replied. And I wanted to say, okay, let's think together. Let's figure a way to deal with this. There must be a way out. But I was too far gone in my panic and despair. Just like when I grew apart from all of my friends. They begged me to leave and I got angry at them. I downplayed the abuse because those things don't happen to women like me, right? Educated, middle-class, strong-willed women like me. It only happens to vulnerable girls who didn't know better, right? Just like when I cut contact with my parents to a minimum because it hurt to lie that everything was fine. It hurt to be asked how was my day, and being unable to think of a single nice thing to say. Just like when I cut my hair and threw away all my makeup so he wouldn't have reasons to feel jealous of me. Just like when I yelled at my neighbor because she called the police on him, I said that it was none of her business and all couples are like that. Just like when I started hurting myself to punish me for not leaving and not taking my first opportunity to be helped. I was too far gone into my trauma, into my pain, into the ugliest part of me that he so thoroughly fed. Is that so I didn't sound like me? I was so bitter, so angry, so utterly unable to act like myself. Because ever since I moved in, you have been a total bitch and treated me poorly, so fuck you. I never asked to get a cursed poltergeist trying to boss me in my every move. This is serious, and I don't want to rot in prison, so this time I'm not sitting around and letting you do as you please. Fuck you and all of you humans. You piece of shits are all the same anyway. You think you're some shit, but you'll live for 50 more years, 60 years tops, and when you turn to fucking dust and manure, I'll still be here, and I'll have things my way. Then I hope you disappear, I retorted. I wanted to stop myself. I was being so childish, on top of everything. But I couldn't. Not in that moment right then. I was the frail, the loser, the pitiful person that he had convinced me that I was. Great, because that would be a fucking ray of sunshine in my miserable eternal life. She made 2 heavy thuds as she took off her shoes, one of the many pairs I gave her, and dematerialized. So have it your way, stupid bitch. I'm turning off my telepathy and going dormant because I'm too fucking mad, and I don't want to recklessly hurt you. I know what you're going to say. This is too out of character for you, Melinda. Considering all that's happened so far, there's no way that you are this dumb. You're better than that. You're lucky to not know firsthand that, when it comes to our abusers, sometimes we'll display incoherent and self-destructive behaviors, and coming back from it is not linear. You're broke in a way that no matter how good of a job you do to mend yourself, you're forever at risk of snapping again. The risk can be small, but it's there, and given enough pressure, it's unavoidable. You're lucky not to know that a piece of your abuser grows on you like a parasite, and it becomes pretty much a ghost limb, acting up and hurting yourself every now and then. My irrational behavior came from a place of fear, from manipulation, and from hating myself for having been manipulated. When you feel like that, it's hard to do anything but act on the belief so carefully seated into your heart that your abuser will always be in control and you're just a sad Pavlov dog. I am not. I am strong. I am a survivor. But it didn't keep me from freaking out and deciding to go to Hen House before the police arrived. It didn't keep from having mixed feelings when I saw him, his throat ripped off and his vocal cords all destroyed so he could never again scream at me, his face filthy with chicken crap and dried blood. Does he really deserve it? Isn't it my fault that I accepted to be hurt? Isn't it my fault that I'm too clumsy and incompetent? I am strong. I am a survivor. But I'm also the woman who made the worst possible choice at that moment. To set him free. I didn't release him because I am weak or forgiving. I have admitted that my lingering trauma played a big part in my decision, But here's what the rational part of my brain said. He might be getting a deal with Orcus right now. And boy, I was right. As soon as I pulled him from the space under the henhouse and went outside again, there was a giant figure towering over me. Even the vision of its back was enough to terrify even someone like me, who considered herself to be used to the creepy and the supernatural. Still with its back nearly naked and completely scarred, turned to the Henry. The fat pig of a demon that bound Pandora to this godforsaken place rotated its neck to watch me, with a smile that was both cruel and delighted. Seeing it in person instead of only in a memory was a sensorial overload. I'll never get over its stink, how it moved like a legged ooze, how its whole skin was made of infected blisters, its voice, its wrongness. Have you ever seen a being and thought this shouldn't exist? This is not only an aberration, but a proof that there's no God looking after us. This is how I felt about the captain. This thing right in front of me was in a whole other level. He was outraged. Apparently the demonic envoy had given his voice back partially so they could make a deal. Come on, you rabid bitch. Tell this fatso who he's messing with. He spitted his words in raucous rage. Lovely words to say about the being who granted you the ability to speak, and to the person who just freed you from a life of having chickens shitting all over you. And he didn't stop, fucking tramp. You always ruin everything. Can never do anything right, can you? The demon patiently read from a scroll. Let's make a bet. If she leaves you here to perish, I'll release you myself and guide you to the house where you can kill her as you please. But if she shows up within the next 3 hours, I win. She wins. I'll rip you apart piece by piece and eat your soul. The scroll did have a bloodstain that was clearly a fingerprint. But he wasn't worried about the 9 feet tall otherworldly creature and the deal he did with it. He was worried about destroying me. You'd better start saying my name and begging that I forgive you. And through everything, I smiled. You know, I spent all this time thinking that I couldn't say your name because I'm scared of you, but it's just that. No, I won't say your name. Ever again. Because I refuse to acknowledge you as a person. The demon spit on his forehead, and it wounded him like a bullet. He whimpered. He was then punched repeatedly until the two of them were inside the Henry again. The demon held his head against the chicken crap and used his face to smudge it, laughing manically. The demon didn't care who it was, as long as there was someone suffering. And luckily, through all my bad choices and regrets, this someone wasn't me or a person I cared to protect. I watched it torture him for long minutes, and even decided to record it with my phone for good measure. Pandora had explained to me that powerful outsiders like this demon can't choose to make themselves invisible for some people while visible to others. That's why the time kind of stopped when she made her pact with it. I knew that the demon wanted me to see it all to maximize his humiliation, so I let it put up a show for me. Things started to get troublesome when it started whipping its fiery tail against the old, dry, and very flammable Henry floor. Without thinking it through, I jumped inside to save my chickens. The demon mistakenly thought I was interfering with its job. Just watch it quietly. Fool, its thunderous, disgusting voice roared. It was just a small slap. It was just throwing me out of the way. But the thing was an emissary working under Orcus himself, and I was just an average woman. As my lacerated abdomen bled enough to leave me unconscious in a matter of seconds, I smiled weakly, and I counted the chickens. At least I was able to evacuate all of them. I don't know for how long I blacked out. I just know that, when I came to again, I was dying in her arms, as she spoke to him, still being devoured bit by the demon. Oh, you're scared. Scared enough to beg a winged woman you don't know to save you, she chuckled, talking to him as she held me. You deserve to be way more terrified for all the hell you have put Melinda through. Consider yourself lucky you're only getting a painfully death once. If it was on me, I'd murder you hundreds of times. She's strong now because of me, he mumbled pathetically. Pandora laughed again. You didn't make her stronger. You tried to destroy her, and it's all on her that she's still standing, that she's still kind, that she held on to every good thing you tried to take from her, that she became an even better version of herself, that she's the woman I love and am proud of. I wanted to pretend I wasn't hearing, but but tears started streaming from my eyes. "Hey, Rumi, you're up," she said softly. Just then I realized she had ripped off a piece of her left wing to stanch my bleeding. "I've been thinking about something you asked me once." "Yeah. If you ever got married and have kids." "I'd protect your babies. I'd protect your guy too, but if he pissed me off, I'd still draw little dicks on his forehead." I tried to squeeze her hand, but I realized my body was too weak to do it. Every surface of Pandora that I could see was covered in my blood. "Sorry it took me a while to come get you. If I go dormant, the other ghosts go too because I'm their boss, so I tried to stop being mad quickly. I punched a few holes in the walls. Although the pain was unbearable, I smiled. Sorry I stormed out like that. I was scared. I feebly apologized. I didn't want to die without doing so." "Yeah, girlfriend, I was scared too, in a sense. But I guess even scared you were able to figure out something that I couldn't. And hey, now we're in kind of a pinch that I can't solve myself. Aren't those stupid officers coming? I need someone with a body and able to leave the property to get you to the hospital." The fat demon continued eating the last bits of his body carelessly, paying no mind to Pandora or me. Soon he was going to be just a miserable head, and then completely erased from existence. "The Henry is on fire, so I guess the neighbors will notice it all soon," I replied. It was also hot as hell where we stood. "But I don't know if I can make it until they come. Let me tell you a little something about being physically hurt by a demon. The problem is not your body, but your soul. You're surviving because you have a strong soul." She put her hand on my sweaty forehead. "But I don't know if it's strong enough to make it through completely. I'm sorry for dying on you, Pandora. Although, there must be a way," she hesitantly added. "Circumstance number one, the person has to be entirely familiar with the terms of the contract, word by word." I saw her memory in my sleep over and over, and I can recite every word from it. "Circumstance number two, the person has to be alive and unbounded by other contracts. I'm a freelance writer. My mortgage was put under my parents' name. They insisted their credit score was better so I'd get to save some money. Circumstance number three, the person has to be willing to not only take Pandora's place, but to become Pandora herself. This one is easy. I feel that we're so connected that we're already part of each other. Circumstance number four, the person has to agree that Pandora takes the person's name and life for herself. And there's nothing I'd like more than have her live a normal life at least for a few decades. Circumstance number five, the person must have been touched by the bearer of the contract. So there we have it, the final requisite. All this time I didn't want you mortals to get close to me because I know you're reckless. I feared someone would offer to take my place, having no idea what it means, but what? But letting you take my place to save your soul is different. So let us do it, I said softly. Despite her magical tourniquet, I was fading again. You stupid fuck. You know what that means for you, right? Forever. For the rest of eternity. You're damned and a slave to Orcus. Pandora. I lived a fulfilling life. I had loving parents, I liked my job, I got this great farm and was able to meet you and all the others, even mentally challenged Rob. We both chuckled. I don't have big dreams or plans, but I still don't want this life to go to waste. So please, let me offer you a little kindness to make it up for all the horrible things you went through. You'll be chained to this house forever. Yeah, but you get to be free. Plus, I quite like this place. She hesitated for a while, then smiled. Well, I do think that you'd make a great leader for the ghosts. I have so many ideas. Anyway, how do we do it? That's pretty cheesy. But you know how they say that every time you kiss someone, you two exchange a piece of your souls? It's like that. So she leaned towards my face like a Prince Charming, giving me the kiss of immortality, and we held hands as we swapped. It's been 2 years now. My soul could take the wound, but my poor body still ended up with a nasty scar, luckily. It didn't take long for a few neighbors to come get us help. I used to be someone a long time ago. Then I lost the right to have a name, and then she came and named me Pandora. Now I inhabit a body named Melinda. the body of the prettiest, strongest, weirdest woman I have ever met. I left the farm for the first time in forever to go to the hospital, and I've been leaving it daily. Even the most mundane task like grocery shopping amazes me. I just make sure to never spend too much time away from my savior, not because she will get lonely, but because I will. I'm working on my rage because it is such a waste to treat poorly the life that she so kindly gave me. Thanks to her, I look forward both to living and to one day, in a few decades, finally dying and finding rest on the other side. Although we couldn't break the curse, I think we at least weakened it, because two things changed. The first is that she doesn't have to survive on raw chicken. We think that it's because she kind of died protecting a few dozen chickens, but she can eat pretty much anything now. Of course, I've been improving my cooking skills so she can dine like a queen. It's the least I can do for her. The second is part of the original deal was that I was forgotten, but now she's in my place, and I'll never, never forget her. Now I, the former raw chicken-eating demon, am a writer with a mortgage, and she, Melinda I, the most amazing woman that ever lived, has hoofs and fights against invaders. You should see how cool she is. Fighting with two kukras, she's a better me than me. So much that she has gained the favor of the other shamans, and even convinced many of the ghosts to go to the light, including all the former slaves. Of course, more will always come, but they will be in good hands. It's funny how you can be broken in a million pieces and still find someone who's broken too, but whose pieces match yours completely. Melinda, I likes to say we saved each other, but she's the one who saved me. She's the one who saves everyone. And when I die, she'll still be here, taking care of whoever erratically walks around this place like a fallen angel. Maybe you humans were right in your fairy tales and true love actually can break curses somehow. Or maybe she's always been more than human. My beautiful demon wife.
That's the end of this story. If you found it engaging, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.